Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of my tutorial. Now, today we're going to focus in on the newspaper and the office and the lights and doors in the office. Now, before I start, I would like to apologize for my lack of uploads. The reason is mainly because of school. I've been super busy with that. But school's over, it's summertime now. I should be able to make videos a lot more often, so be prepared for that. Another reason is because this video is just doesn't want to exist. For some reason, there's been so many recording errors, editing errors. I've had to film this at least 7 times now. But hopefully this is the one. Alright, let's get into it. Let's make a new sprite. Let's call this sprite newspaper. Great. Now, I'm going to take this newspaper costume I made off camera. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it. I'm also going to take this. I'm quickly going to make a gradient over the whole thing. Perfect. Now, we're going to go into the code. When flag is clicked, we're going to hide. When I receive newspaper, we're going to show. Next, I'm going to make this fader go to the front layer. And after this sprite is done, we're going to set stage to 4. So if we try this, and if I do this, wait until stage is equal to 4. Then I can do another wait until, and I can replace that with mouse down. Now, then we can broadcast a new message. We're going to call it fade into office. There we go. Now, in our fader sprite, we're going to duplicate this. We're going to get rid of these. And then we're going to replace newspaper with a new message, office. Perfect. And then finally, one last thing. When I receive office, we're going to hide. So this is our newspaper script. Oh, whoops, I forgot to change this thing. We're going to instead change this into fade into office. Now let's try this one more time. Play. We see our newspaper. We click, and it immediately goes into the office. Okay, now with that out of the way, we can get into our gameplay. Let's make a new sprite. We're going to call it office. Go into here. I've also made a office sprite or costume off camera. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it into here. Perfect. Now, one thing I want to do is make it a parallax. So I'm going to take these two. I'm going to copy them and delete them. I'm going to paste them into a new sprite or a new costume. I'm going to copy and delete this. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now, the way we're going to code this is so that the things at the back, the bottom costumes, or the least amount, will go in the back layers. The things in the front will go to the front layer. So this is probably going to be our front layer no matter what. So, now what we're going to do is we're going to take these two doors, copy and delete them. We're going to make a new costume, and we're going to go behind this. We're going to paste them. And then I'm going to copy and delete this one, make a new costume, paste it, and put it behind that. Perfect. Now, there's one last thing we need to make, which is doors. So, we're just going to duplicate these. We're just going to make it a little lighter. We're going to do the same thing here. Perfect. We have our doors. Now, let's get into making the clones. First off, we're going to do when flag is clicked, we're going to hide. Now, we'll do when I receive office, we're going to make a new block, and we're going to call it create clones. Run without screen refresh. Click OK. Next, we're going to drag this in here. What we're going to do is we're going to show. We will repeat how many costumes are there. 6 costumes. I'm going to repeat 6. We're also going to drag in switch costume to costume 4. We're going to make a new variable, call it clone ID for this sprite only. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to set clone ID to 0. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to change clone ID by 1. We're going to create clone of myself, and then next costume. And then after all this is done, we're going to hide. So, the next thing we're going to want to do is when I start as clone, we're going to repeat until, so basically forever, and we're going to go to, for now, x00. So let's try this. We go into our newspaper, we click on that, and boom, we have our office ready. But a problem, it's not moving anywhere. We can fix that. Go into your when I start as clone thing. We're going to do if then else. We're going to do equals clone ID, and it's equal to 1. So that would be this hallway. We're going to go to times negative 0.05 mouse X. And we're going to duplicate this and replace mouse X with mouse Y. So now the first clone is moving. You can't see it yet because there are other clones in front of it. So we're going to go 2. Now the other one's moving. Next, we're going to go 3. Now that's moving. Then 4. Now these are all moving. And finally, 5. Now this is all moving except for the last one, which is 6. It's going 0.05. And now one last thing we can do here is make it to go 0.07. Oh, nice. Now we have that parallax effect. But there's one problem. The doors are always closed. Let's make a new variable, and we're going to call it door Y for this sprite only. We're going to click OK. We're going to set door Y to 240 once these clones start. And for the 2 clones that are the doors, which is clones 3 and 4, we're going to go on their mouse Y things. We're going to do plus. And our plus is going to be door Y. Let me just duplicate this for the other one. Perfect. Now if we start, we have our office with the doors way above here. Perfect. Alright, now we need buttons for doors and lights. We're going to go into the office costume, and we're going to make some buttons. The first button is going to be a red button with a gray outline. It's going to be big. So this is our first button. We can just alt-click this, which duplicates it, and we can drag it down and replace this with white. Perfect. Now we have our set of buttons. We can just group this, bring it up a little, and then we can alt-click it and bring it to the other side. Perfect. Now we have our buttons. But we need to be able to click them, so we need to make them separate costumes. We're going to take these, we're going to copy and delete them. Next, we're going to make a new costume, put it behind the gradient, and we're going to do this. Now, if we take our select tool, we can shift click all these three and delete them. And then we can make a new costume, paste them again, and we can delete these three instead. And then we rinse and repeat until we have all different buttons selected. So, like this. Whoops. Put that there. And then this. And finally, delete that. And put that there. Alright. Now this added 4 extra costumes, which made our clone count total to 10. So we're going to go to 10. Next thing we're going to want to do is change it so that the gradient is if clone ID is equal to 10. So it only moves if it's 10. Finally, we're going to change this to 5 and use clone ID 6 if clone ID is equal to clone ID is equal to 7. If clone ID is equal to 8. And finally, if clone ID is equal to 9. So we're going to start this one more time and see if it works. Perfect. One last thing I want to do is just make this go to front layer so it goes in front of the office. Alright, so now that we've set it up so that each one has their own clone and their own positions, we can start making them do stuff. So, we're going to go into here and we're going to see which ones are the light clones. 7 and 9 by the looks of it. So we want these to make it so that you can look out the doors. What we're going to do is we're going to make a new variable and we're going to call it light for all sprites. We're going to click OK. Next, we have to go to clone 7 and 9. What we're going to do is if then, else, if touching mouse pointer, and then if mouse is down, we're going to set light to 1. And then on top of all this, I'm going to set light to 0. So we're going to drag this into 7. And then I'm just going to duplicate it and change this to 2. And then finally, as to not to disturb each other, I'm going to take an if then. I'm going to do not equals 2. I'm going to drag light into there. If not light equals 2, we're going to set light to 0. I'm going to duplicate this real fast. Perfect. And then for this one, it's going to be if not light is equal to 1. We're going to set light to 0. This I accidentally dragged into the wrong place. So this should be in clone ID is equal to 7. Alright, so now if we test this out, if this one is pressed on or clicked on, it'll set light to 1. If it's not, set light to 0. And this one, if it's clicked on, it'll set light to 2. And if not, it'll set light to 0. Perfect. Now what we can do is we can go to our hallway things. I'm going to copy this door. I'm going to make a new costume all the way down here. We're going to paste it. I'm going to do the same thing with the other door. I'm going to paste it here. Now, I'm just going to change it so that these are all white. This is just a placeholder, of course. Now, what we can do is, for if clone ID equals 1, so if it's the right door, then we can do if then else, light is equal to 2. If not, we're just going to switch costume to costume 4. I'm going to drag light in there. And then we're going to do if light is equal to 2. We're going to switch our costume to costume 11. Alright, we can duplicate this. We'll change this to light equals 1. We're going to bump each of these up 1. Whoops, not costume 5, costume 3. And perfect. So now, if all went well, yes. So now we can turn on the lights off and on by just pressing down on the buttons. Now, isn't that great? Now comes the trickier part, which is making door buttons. Now, we already have our door Y variables. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate when I start as clone. We're just going to get rid of all of this except for this. Now, we're going to head to these red buttons, 6 and 8. So we're going to do if clone ID is equal to 6, and if clone ID is equal to 8. Alright. We're going to do something similar to what we did, is if touching mouse pointer, and if mouse down, and we're just going to drag that in there. Now here comes the more trickier part. We're going to make a variable. We're going to call it door for all sprites. We're going to set door to 0. Oop. No. If mouse down, we're going to set door to right or left, because this is what clone ID 6 equals does. And then what we can do is we can do set door to right if clone ID is equal to 8. So basically, if we show the door mechanic or the door variable, then we can change it from left to right, left and right. Now, we're going to want to have to turn it off. So what we're going to do is if clone ID is equal to L, or door is equal to L, then we're going to set door to 0, and else we're going to set door to L. And then once again, we're going to duplicate this for the other side and just replace the L's with R's. So now, one bug. We need to put a wait until, not mouse down on here. Perfect. And we can just duplicate that for this. Great. So now we can change it from left to right, and then we can toggle it from left to 0 and right to 0. But we have one problem. If we try to shut both of them, it can't. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to have a new state for both the doors. And we're going to make it so if door equals L or the door is equal to left, right. So we're going to do if door is equal to left, right, or door is equal to L, then what we can do, all right, perfect. So if door equals to left and right, or door equals L. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put an if then else, door equals left, right. If not, we're just going to set door to 0. If it is, then we're going to set door to right, because both of them are on, and we just want one of them on now. Alright, and then I'm just going to change this into here, and if door is equal to left, right, or if door equals to right, I'm going to set door to left, right, else we're going to set door to L. We're just going to drag that in there. Perfect. Now, we're going to just copy that in there, and we're going to get rid of this. Now, all we have to do is change all the rights, or lefts for rights, and rights for lefts. So that's an R, that's an L, that's an L, and that's an R. Just drag that in there. Alright, so now, what we can do is so this door is on, so it's right. If this door is on as well, it's left, right. If not, right. And then we can do this one, it's left, right. Now it's just left, now it's just right. And if we turn both of them off, they're 0. Perfect. Now we get to the actual animation part of the doors. What we can do is we can go to clone IDs 3 and 4, which are the doors. We're going to do an if then else. We're going to do equals. We're also going to put an or in here. And if we're going to do door is equal to right, R, or door is equal to left and right, then we're going to change door Y by 0 minus door Y divided by 3. And then, if it's not, then we can do 240. So if we drag this in here, and then we can change this to L for the other one, and drag it in there. Now, if all went well, perfect. We can toggle the doors on and off, and they shut and close, and we can turn off and on the lights. Now, isn't that perfect? Let's just hide this variable real fast. And then one last thing I'm going to do is for in these repeat untils, I'm going to do equal to. I'm going to do stage is not equal to 4. And then we're done. Basically all this does is so it determines whether some place is at something like that. But yeah. So that's how you do an office. Of course, these costumes are just placeholders. The next thing we're going to be looking at is cameras and just cameras in general. I'm going to start a stream soon of me making the cameras and the doors and everything, and then and then we can actually start coding in the next part. Sorry this took so long to get out. A new episode should come a lot shorter than this one did. Thanks for watching. See ya.